Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the chance to speak to part one of this New Zealand International Convention Centre bill. Mr. Chair, in his comments during his contribution, Mr. Young talked about the benefits in terms of this deal with unemployment, and that this government has been willing to sign this deal to make sure that there are employment opportunities for New Zealanders. Well, Mr. Chair, I would ask Mr. Young and other members of the National Party why they haven't intervened when there have been job losses in the previous 5 years of their government, to this extent to sign a deal of this nature to the point of signing away a $402 million convention centre to create employment for New Zealanders. Where was the government when in Dunedin the train yards down there were in grief and those jobs were up and those hillside workers were looking for some hope from this government? Where was the government? Nowhere to be. Nowhere to be seen at all, washing their hands clean of a problem with people losing their jobs. But here, Mr. Chair, the government member over there, Mr. Young, was quite happy to say the government would intervene to do a deal with Sky City to make sure there are employment opportunities to address the unemployment problem that we have here in New Zealand. Mr. Chair, a number of people have mentioned in this debate that a convention centre for New Zealand might be a very good idea, that it might be able to draw the likes of international trade shows to New Zealand, to bring international visitors here to New Zealand. But the question on this side of the House that we have is, did we have to sell off our ability to regulate gambling and also to make laws here in New Zealand to a huge effect in order to do that? And Mr. Chair, we on this side of the equation, on this side of the House, say we did not have to. Mr. Chair, this is a conscience vote, and there are some members on the other side of the House that do come from constituencies where gambling harm does hit them disproportionately hard. And I am speaking about members such as Peseta Sam Lotuinga, and I do acknowledge that he has had a family death, and acknowledge that. But Sam, besides that, has a responsibility as a Member of Parliament to represent his community. And in the regulatory impact statement, Mr. Speaker, the officials who were advising the Select Committee on this did point out in I think it was 86 of the regulatory impact statement, that the increase in the number of pokie machines will hit those communities harder, the likes of Māori and Pacifica communities. And I know that Mr. Lotuinga represents Maungakiki, where there is a very high percentage of Pacific people there. So I think this being a conscience vote, Mr. Lotuinga should look at the harm that this bill will have on the Pacific and Māori communities within his electorate, and choose wisely when we are asked to vote on this bill. Because as other members have pointed out in this debate on part one, the deal that has been signed between the government, the Crown and Sky City will see over 230 more pokie machines. The deal between the Crown and Sky City with its licence extended another 27 years in Auckland, a city which I must say has the highest Pacifica population in the country. It will allow another 40 extra gaming tables, and Mr. Chair, the deal goes on to give much more concessions to Sky City in response to building the convention centre. Now, the Pacifica community, unfortunately, in all of this, will be hit very hard. And I do call on the conscience of other Pacifica members on the other side of the House to think very wisely about the impact that this will have on our communities and the harm that it will cause to families, and, as Denise Rocha says, to the children in those families, by signing this deal off. Because, Mr. Chair, by signing this deal off, we are saying that we're okay with harm in those communities. We're okay with harm in these communities. So for the Pacifica members on the other side of the House, I make a special plea to you to think very wisely before you do vote on this issue. Mr. Speaker, turning to some of the machinations of how this agreement or dodgy deal came about between Sky City and the government. In fact, if I was sitting in the Sky City boardroom at the moment, Mr Chair?
I'm going to the Sky City board.
Mr Chair?
Chris Farfoy.
If I was sitting in the Sky City boardroom at the moment, I'd be very happy because the government has completely... this government has completely and utterly sold out in terms of the deal, because what they get for the cost is a great deal. We have sold ourselves short here because the government has sold out in a big way, and Mr Young was talking about the spin-offs in terms of unemployment. We get nowhere close to a good deal in terms of employment, Mr Young, and I know that in the Select Committee that you chair, that some research done by the Institute of Economic Research prepared for the Minister and the Chair showed that because of the diversion of investment, that only 18 more jobs, not 1,800, not 18,000, just not even 180, just 18. 18 more jobs will be created under this deal, Mr Chair. So this government is playing up very highly the gains of employment from this deal, but Mr Chair, it's quite clear from the evidence that went before the Select Committee that they simply don't exist. Mr Chair, just turning to some of the politics around this, because Mr Key, the Prime Minister, was kind of crowing that this was a good deal and said that he was totally vindicated when the Deputy Auditor General investigated how this deal came about. But let's just dig a little deeper, because always with this government, it's the details that catch them out, because that's not exactly how the Deputy Auditor General came to be. And for the benefit of Mr Oakenfold, who giggled because maybe he doesn't know what the Deputy Auditor General said, and for his benefit, I will tell Mr Oakenfold that the Deputy Auditor General said that the process of Sky City getting the contract to build the convention centre was, he said it himself, I think he said flawed. He said it was, the Deputy Auditor General said it was flawed and not transparent or even-handed. The report established deficiencies on the part of both ministers, so I think we're talking about the Minister and the Chair and the Prime Minister and officials. Now, Mr Chair, that is not exactly pertaining to the Prime Minister being totally vindicated by the Auditor General's report. Another instance around the Sky City deal, Mr Chair, where the government has been more spin than reality. Mr Chair, we've heard from David Clark, who talked about an expert from a university in Australia, I think, who from Bond University said that Sky City had got an incredibly good deal. And it shows you just how bad negotiators they are on the other side of the House. It shows you just how bad negotiators they are on the other side of the House. Because not only was it a bad business deal, Mr Chair, but it was bad for our communities. Not just in Auckland, but right around New Zealand, because they saw how this government would quite easily and happily sell out in the interests of doing a deal to build a convention centre. 280 more pokie machines, 280 more pokie machines, 40 more gaming tables, for pretty much zero. And the harm that will do to, I think it was 8,000 more Aucklanders as a result of this convention centre and the increase in the licence to Sky City going ahead. Mr Chair, this deal will do harm. It will do harm to the communities in Auckland, and I just want to finish again to a plea to the Pacific Island members on the other side of the House. It is patently obvious that gambling harm hurts our community more. So we will be disproportionately affected by the increase in these pokie machines and these gaming machines and the extension of the licence that is given to Sky City. So it is our community that will get hit harder. So in order to prevent that happening, the members on the other side have an opportunity to stop that today. They can just simply vote against this piece of legislation. So, to Awhirungaro and to Seta Notuinga, do the right thing for your community. Because If you don't, sure, you'll have your political reputation and within your party intact. You did the right thing within your party, but you sold out your community. Mr. Chair.
Maggie Berry. Maggie Berry.
I move that the question be now put.
Mr. Chair, I want to address another